Yep, good morning. Dwight Bigler is Associate Professor and Director of Choral Activities at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia, and has directed the choirs at Tech since 2009. I met Dwight last year, the summer of 2023, when he was Tech's host for a choral singing week in which I participated. And it was there that I learned of his very recent composition, Mosaic for Earth. It's an award-winning concert-length, multi-movement, multimedia work for chorus, soloist, orchestra, and projected imagery. Many of you have already seen some of this online, but for those of you who have not, rest assured, Dwight's presentation will be thoroughly accessible. And now, rather than spend more of our time on my recitation of his credentials, I want to quickly turn this over to Dwight so that each of you can experience his warmth, his depth of dedication to music and our planet, his generosity, his articulateness, and of course, so that you will learn as much as you can in our limited time about Mosaic. Go, Dwight.
Thank you, Ted, for that very kind introduction. And it's an honor to be here with you all. I am not seated in this beautiful concert hall, but I wanted to share this because this is where I get to live and make music here at Virginia Tech. It's our new concert hall and is the location that we premiered Mosaic for Earth a couple of years ago. But thank you, a huge thank you for inviting me to be able to share this piece with you and some background about it and hopefully contribute in a really good way towards what we are all gathered here to help make a difference in. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. We have been attempting this before the meeting, and I'm hoping, as we all do with technology, that it works. So I think you can see it now, yeah?
Looks good.
Fantastic. Good, good, good. All right. So Mosaic for Earth, this gigantic piece, which kind of became even bigger than what I thought originally. But I wanted to share some background about what inspired me to write it, what kind of motivated me to write it. So as Ted mentioned, I moved to Virginia in 2009. I'm originally from Idaho, way out west, and grew up camping every summer with my family and just growing up with a real love for nature. When I moved to Virginia, I quickly became aware of the environmental issues that are impacting this region, some of which are here on this screen. I don't know if any of you have ever zoomed into a satellite image of this region to see the real landscape. But if you zoom in to the West Virginia, Kentucky, and Virginia region, kind of the place where those areas collide, you'll see what look to me like scabs on the beautiful green mountains of these 300 million year old mountains in Appalachia. And those scabs, a lot of them, most of them, are mountaintop removal sites. And I was astounded at how much land has been impacted by that. Over 500 mountains have been destroyed in this area, over 1 million acres. And that's just the direct impact on where the mountains get blown up and removed. And then there's further impact, of course, with where they put all of the debris and how it impacts streams. And like, we're all downstream, ultimately. So we all feel these. And it impacts health, economy, water, all of that kind of a thing. And there are lots of other issues. The New River goes by Virginia Tech about a mile away, and the Radford Arsenal dumps a lot of waste into that, making the New River the most polluted river in Virginia and the third most in the United States. So there are lots of issues. We have pipelines, working their way through this area. Some of them get stopped. Some of them continue going, get reapproved and whatnot. But there are a lot of difficult issues that we're dealing with. And as a musician, I thought, well, there are the little things that I can do just by myself that are important, because this facing these issues and solving them is going to take everybody. But I wanted to see if there was something that I could contribute in a bigger way as a musician and as a composer and conductor of choral music. And I grew up in the world of instrumental music, actually. I was a pianist and an oboist. I marched in the marching band on the drum line. Like I've experienced music in lots of different ways and know how powerful music can be in our lives. We use it We use it for birthdays, regardless of how well we sing the birthday song. There's always birthday music there. We use music in worship services. We use them at sports events. I tell you, the quickest way, if you want to get 60,000 people in the Virginia Tech football stadium all together doing the same thing at the same time, is you play the song at the beginning of the football game. They use Enter Sandman, I think it's a rock song, and 60,000 people are jumping up and together at the same time. It just is extraordinarily powerful. So I wanted to see if there was a way that I could harness this power of music in this area of environmental sustainability, climate change, in this topic, in order to help motivate us to make the large-scale changes that are essential to succeeding with these topics. One of the experts here at Virginia Tech I was talking to, she said, it doesn't really matter if every person on the planet buys an electric vehicle. Does it make a difference? Sure. But is it going to solve the issue? No. The big issues that need to be solved are at the policy level, the government level, the bigger corporate levels. So I'm hoping that a big event like Mosaic that takes 200 singers, a full orchestra, children's choir, community choirs, professional instrumentalists, plus the visual arts component and the interdisciplinary nature that I'm going to talk about a little bit here. I'm hoping that can create experiences that can be viscerally motivating as people experience this work. It takes a lot of work to put on the piece because it is for large forces. I'm working on creating some smaller versions of it so that smaller choirs can do it. But I'm hoping that it gives us a way to celebrate nature, to illuminate our minds about the possibilities and the reasons and the options, and help us have the conversations needed to make progress, and ultimately will inspire us and motivate us to take action. So I started this whole process by having great conversations with a friend of mine who teaches an environmental literature course at Virginia Tech. She kept sending me books, and they're amazing. There's so much great literature out there. But 3 authors in particular rose to the top as I was looking for possible texts to set as lyrics for a musical composition. That in itself could be a whole other webinar, how to find language that is singable. We'll get into that maybe later. But 3 of the main authors that I found in this process were Terry Tempest Williams, a Utah author that just is an artist with language, so inspiring. Particularly this book of hers called The Hour of Land. I highly recommend it, where she tours national parks around the country and writes a chapter about each one of them, about 14 different parks. Eric Reese is a Kentucky author who documents the destruction of one of these mountains from mountaintop removal. The mountain is called Lost Mountain, and by the end of his book, the mountain is gone. N. Scott Momaday, a Native American author, wrote this wonderful book, The Way to Rainy Mountain. I use a paragraph from this in Mosaic for Earth. And then here on the right of the screen are other authors, 10 total authors, Appalachian poets, Stuart Udall, the past U.S. Secretary of the Interior, a number of various authors. And I compiled, cut, and pasted and figured out how to kind of fit them together by topic and by singability for lyrics for this piece. Another really important source of inspiration for the piece were these illuminations by New York City artist Barbara Wolf. She creates these illuminations in the old medieval style, actually on vellum, and then hand paints the Hebrew calligraphy for each verse from Psalm 104, and then illustrates that in just magical ways. She makes her own gold powder paint to be able to paint these with. They're in the Morgan Library in New York City, the J.P. Morgan Library and Museum. And I went up there and saw them in person and studied them. And when I saw them, I knew that these needed to be the anchor, the celebratory anchor of Mosaic for Earth. These were going to be the pillars. I was going to extract movements or verses from Psalm 104 and use them as the celebratory parts of Mosaic for Earth. Because I think through all of this, it's important to remember what we're trying to preserve, the beauty of nature, and the wonder and the marvel of the amazing diversity of life on this planet. So I wanted to make sure that the piece wasn't just a downer piece. It needs some celebratory moments in them. Our visual projections included these images as well. They were just magical. The video production online that you can watch for free has them incorporated throughout the video as well. I wanted to make one comment about how I adapted the text. I know in a diverse world with lots of religions and lots of people from backgrounds with no religion, sometimes a piece that says that it has text from Psalm 104 will persuade people to not engage with the piece because of their background, personal background, or particular religious beliefs. So I wanted to make a point of showing how I adapted the Psalm texts to open the language a little bit. I modernized the metaphors and then I adjusted the language so that there's not a specific reference to any sort of deity or any sort of religion. But there are pronouns that are used throughout where the singer and the listener can connect that pronoun to whatever they feel connected to, whether that is a god, whether that's Mother Nature. And I was so grateful to see this work because I had some atheist students actually came up to me after some of these rehearsals and said, Dr. Bigler, I'm so excited about singing a piece that I feel like I can really connect with. And I also had students who are very active in their student religious organizations who came to me and said how much they felt connected to the piece as well, spiritually. So I was really glad to see how that worked. As the piece continued on, I just want to give you a little picture of my workspace. This was the neat version of my kitchen table as I started coordinating and organizing the texts into different movements and related topics. And then I created a composition stand on my piano where I love to work by hand. Any of you who have written articles or books or anything, there's just a huge process. I love to have pencil in my hand and writing on paper. I have my own shortcuts, my little way of organizing, and of course, from the beginning, I had to be thinking of the orchestration, how I would incorporate the instruments throughout the orchestra, give myself parameters for that so it doesn't just flow over the stage. It's really close to doing that already. But I wanted to share just a little image of that so you can see kind of what I've done there. As we continue in this presentation, I wanted to share, I think one of the most important things to share are some of the texts, actually, because it's getting these texts, understanding them, and getting them into people's minds and ears, I think, that can help make the difference. And when they're paired with music, it makes these texts memorable. Like singers, after you spend 3 months of rehearsing this piece, many of our singers remember these texts. They just go over and over. Music has an amazing way to connect with our memory and comprehension as well. So one of the texts by Terry Tempest Williams that I want to just read to you is this excerpt from The Hour of Land. The irony of existence, of our existence, is this. We are infinitesimal in the grand scheme of evolution, a tiny organism on Earth. And yet, personally, collectively, we are changing the planet through our veracity, the velocity of our reach, our desires, our ambitions, and our appetites. We multiply. Our hunger multiplies, and our insatiable craving accelerates. Consumption is a progressive disease. We believe in more possessions, more power, more war. Anywhere, everywhere, our advance of aggression continues. My aggression toward myself is the first war. Isn't that just remarkable? There's so much packed in that can attach to any sort of number of issues that we're facing around the world. I mean, I was just reading this morning how just this progression that we've made with AI recently is taking so much more power to do that processing for AI that even with the recycling and the new solar power and all of that kind of thing that we're making these adjustments to use sustainable energy sources, our demand for energy just keeps growing and growing and growing. So it compounds the whole issue. On the flip side of this, that was one of her really sobering texts that's a little bit depressing and shocking, which I wanted in this piece. We need to face these things, I think, head on. She also has these very inspiring moments, such as this excerpt from The Hour of Land. She says, "We are slowly returning to the hour of land where our human presence can take a sidestep and respect the integrity of the place itself, paying attention to its own historical and ecological character beyond our needs and desires. This kind of generosity of spirit requires an uncommon humility to listen to the land first. And she makes this wonderful point that if we consider these foundational elements, consider our place within the bigger whole, and we listen to the land first, we will make much better decisions, because we do need things to live, to survive, humanity. But if we consider the land first and our context in that, we will make much better decisions. Then I wanted to share another excerpt from this letter. This comes from the movement that we shared with you, suggested that you listen to before today's presentation. This is an excerpt from a letter that Stuart Udall wrote to his grandchildren. He was the U.S. Secretary of the Interior for a number of years back in, I think with President Kennedy, if I remember right. But this is such a beautiful little letter that he tells to his grandchildren. Whether you are a person of faith who believes the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, whether you are an individual who has had mystical experiences that link you to the network of eternity, or whether you are a fervent conservationist who wants to leave a legacy for your progeny, the earth needs your devotion and tender care. Go well, do well, my children. Support all endeavors that promise a better life for the inhabitants of our planet. Cherish sunsets, wild creations, and wild places. Have a love affair with the wonder and beauty of the earth. Oh, I just love that. And I was thrilled. I had some family members fly out from Utah and Idaho to come to the premiere of Mosaic for Earth back in spring 2022. And I was thrilled when we got home after the concert. I had a sister who had this line memorized already. Have a love affair with the wonder and beauty of the earth. She was saying, oh, I love that moment. I love that line. And without looking back at the program book, she recited the line already. And I thought, oh, it's working. The music helps these lines to sink in for us to think about over and over. There are a number of other parts of this project that we did as part of the premiere that I hope future performances will also include. We planned these educational outreach events where we had panel discussions where we invited experts from Virginia Tech that were experts in plastics, in transportation, in construction, in recycling, in power production, all of these kind of areas. And they talked to us about some of the myths that we run into with as we try to make a difference. There are some misunderstandings and there's ongoing learning and knowledge. We had some of these outreach events before the concert and then a follow-up one after. In the middle of this picture, we have a little excerpt from the program book, the concert program book, which we spent a little extra on to make a full color concert program that had the full texts as well as beautiful reproductions of Barbara Wolf's illuminations in them. The goal was to have the audience members take this book home with them and use it, go back through, find these books, go buy the full books and read them. I wanted it to be a keepsake that would remind people of these topics. And it worked. Our ushers said they picked up the fewest just leftover program books from this concert hall. Usually there are a bunch left in the seats, right? The audience members will just leave the program there and ushers gather them up. They did not leave hardly any of them after this concert, so that worked. And then on top of these two things, we created a website. And you can go to that, mosaicforearth.org. It has lots of different additional resources that my English professor that taught this environmental literature class, she put a page of additional readings and things. And you can Google these as well, but this is kind of a curated list. My colleague in construction and sustainability has also put together some resources, and we're adding links and just ideas there. There's even a page for musicians, because there are lots of new organizations now that are supporting composers and performers in creating and performing works that are engaged in these topics. For example, there's an organization called Tempo, Music for Climate Action, led by a woman out in California, Lucy. At the moment, my brain just fried and I don't remember her last name. Lucy. Oh, she's amazing. And she has expertise in writing policies in the government process. Her expertise is actually in geology and earthquake preparation, but she's also a musician and felt passionate enough about refocusing her energies to try to get more action happening with climate change. The Eco Voice Project is another one. There's a whole list of a bunch of these organizations that support the creation of these kind of works to engage everybody. The background of this slide is the audience before the concert. I had colleagues that set up lobby displays, interactive lobby displays. We had a sold-out crowd, so all of the audiences lined up here to get into the concert. And there were some really wonderful displays by master naturalists, master gardeners, artists in the area, lots of different ways to bring in community organizations for people to look at and learn about before the concert itself. Here's a picture of the audience the night of. We weren't quite filled up at this point, but it did sell out, which showed me a couple of things. It showed me how interested people are in this topic, how passionate they are about music. They love music. And we had lots of people in this audience who hadn't come to choir orchestra concerts before. So because of the topic of this concert, they showed up and wanted to experience an interdisciplinary with the visual arts, the topics of the text, the musical components. They wanted to experience this in a new way. So we were thrilled to have them. We also recorded the whole thing, of course. So the video online was produced by a professional recording company, Tonzen. The album itself is on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube. You can watch them at all or listen to them at all of these places. And if you ever wonder where to find them, just go to our website, mosaicforearth.org, and there are links to all of these on that website. I have a couple of excerpts we're going to attempt to play. I have a 3-minute excerpt that gives little snippets of 9 different movements, just so you get a feel for the flavor of the piece. I wanted to use music, melodies, harmonies that are very accessible, because I want many audiences to be able to connect with this piece. So some of it sounds a little bit perhaps like movie soundtrack music and whatnot, but there are lots of layers. I tried to make it not only accessible for the audience, but interesting for the performers, doable, but fulfilling also, something that would be enjoyable to play. So we're going to attempt the audio files, and I've put the lyrics here for each of the excerpts. You'll see them appear on the screen when the music plays. Comforted you. that sound came across all right. That just gives you a
Yes.
little snippet of the flavor of the piece. And I hope that you will go listen to the whole thing. This leads to kind of the question of like, what can SAFE do possibly to use this piece? The first thing is to just share it. The recording, the video is free to watch. And you can share the link to with your friends and family. You can get your communities together if you have a community gathering place and a big screen with some big speakers and watch it. Have a movie night. It's about 75 minutes long, 14 movements. So that last one I played the very end. That's kind of how the piece ends. I wanted to make sure that I ended with some high energy for us to go forward and act, do something about these things. But yeah, there you go. Mosaic for Earth.